former president of SJP at UC Santa Barbara, Jwan.
The UC system has connections to some of the largest weapon manufacturers, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. First time in 11 years, we won our battle to pass a resolution directing UCSB to divest $22 million from Palestinian human rights violations to institutionalize a boycott of companies complicit in genocide. The sixth UC that institutionalized a boycott, and let's actually use this money to help the students, organizing coalition of not only students but community members, graduate students, faculty, cross-movement solidarity, Congreso, Mauna Kea Protectors, Black Women's Health Collaborative. This is not just about Palestine. This is about stolen Chumash land, Chumash bones. UCSB refuses to give back. The UC is for profit and not for the people. The most amazing thing to come out of this year is we practice liberation.
Good to see you. How you feeling?
Good to be back. I think we won.
Oh, I thought you were talking about in Palestine. I was like, I think we won too. Like, it's pretty much done for them. Like,
No,
they're literally on their last legs. Like, all of their surveillance technology has been dismantled. Like, there's fires in the north. Almost nobody lives up there anymore. Like, it's pretty good. It's good stuff.
No, I was talking about the reason why we haven't recorded this podcast for 2 weeks.
Okay. You know where we also won? A divestment campaign at UCSB.
Yes.
Hey, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We need good news. It's been a fucking disaster in Gaza for the last several days, for the last several 9 months, for the last several 76 years. So give us good news, please.
Well, let's introduce our guest. How about that?
Well, yeah, sure. Introductions, but then good news. Just at any point, give us good news.
So we are very excited for this week's episode. Our guest is a friend of the show. She is the former president of SJP at UC Santa Barbara. Welcome to the podcast, Jwan.
Thank you, guys. I am fangirling so hard right now. You don't understand.
We're fangirling. Both Michael and I are.
It's so good to have you. And we so appreciate everything that you've done. Walk us through the journey through divestment.
Yeah, I am happy to announce that for the first time in 11 years, we won our battle to not only pass a resolution directing UCSB to divest from Palestinian human rights violations, but also to institutionalize a boycott of companies complicit in genocide and occupation within our associated students, which holds around $22 million. So now we are not the last UC to not pass a resolution, but we are up there with the sixth UC that has institutionalized a boycott. So we are not the embarrassment anymore. Still an embarrassment, but just not on the level
No,
that
you
we
were
saw
never an
before.
embarrassment. No.
No, but it was amazing.
You guys have been organizing for years. Talk us through the process of how long it took and what the students' reactions were and everything that you experienced.
Yeah, so I believe the first time this resolution was brought up was 2012 or 2013, which that person was actually able to give us public comment, which was such a nice rounding of the moment. So this resolution was tried to be passed, I believe, 8 times. First time was actually passed, but at that time, some kind of vote count was deemed invalid, so it was unpassed. But finally, this year, we were able to pass with a majority, with 18 yes out of 24, and it was truly an accumulation of the entire year. We have been organizing and mobilizing people to organize on campus for 8 months straight. Such a sight to see, where there was 50 to 100 people every single week organizing some kind of action, some kind of community work. And because of that, because of the steadfastness we had for 8 months, we were able to build community, build people that wanted to take power, that wanted to institutionalize change. And for the first time, we have a Senate that is not majority Zionist.
Now we just need to do the same thing in Congress, you know? All right.
Exactly. It's easy.
Just kidding. Electoral politics won't save us.
Right. At least at UCSB, this is something that will go beyond Palestine, right? But it's for Palestine, but also in communication with food insecurity, with housing, with all these things that UCSB needs to invest in communities and workers and education. And now these senators are able to actually say, hey, we want to boycott, and let's actually use this money that will help the students, something that actually helps campus.
Yeah. So you were the president of SJP before you graduated. Talk us through your journey with SJP. When did you join and how did you get involved? What inspired you?
I joined SJP during the pandemic, so it was the year that we were fully online. I did not really know anything about Palestine. I grew up in a liberal Zionist Christian Arab household, so I didn't really know much. Yeah.
Wild.
It was very normalized, but I didn't know anything. I was just interested in joining something. I was bored at home, and I'm insanely grateful that I DM'd SJP and wanted to join. And at that moment, I was like, oh, everything I know is like wrong. So I wanted to actually learn what is going on.
That's relatable.
Yeah.
Also, I just noticed the Jesus picture right behind you when you said that.
Jesus cross. Yeah, so it's very interesting, even now, to like be in kind of a liberal Arab Zionist household. I'm Jordanian Palestinian. So I was born in Jordan. I'm mostly fully Jordanian, but some of my grandparents were Palestinian.
Where were they from?
Bethlehem.
I imagine they're not the Zionists.
You would imagine, you would imagine.
They're the Zionists?
Wow. No.
A lot of them. Yeah. It's really interesting.
How practically does that work though? Because they're like, are they still in Palestine?
No.
Right. So if they were to try to go, they would have their rights infringed upon because of Zionism.
Right.
And so would they can think that was a good thing? How does that work?
Much easier to be a Zionist outside of Palestine.
It's confusing. I don't understand it still, but a lot of it does come from Islamophobia. And some of my grandparents were right in 48 in Jordan when a lot of Palestinians came and took refuge in that area. And it's literally the thing of like, this one person harmed me or did this to me, so I hate all of them. It's so weird, but a lot of it does have a lot of Islamophobia. I'm like trying to help them unlearn, but it's really hard. But also they see like this one side and they don't see the full side, because they see the Palestine question as like a question of Islam, and they're erasing some of the other stuff. So it's
they
weird,
are
honestly.
neglecting the long history of Palestinian Christians, Jesus Christ, where he was born.
Literally, like Bethlehem. Like I don't know what to tell
Legit
you more.
Bethlehem, yeah.
Like I don't know what to tell you more. Like, it's weird. It's a weird situation in this house.
Okay. So that's very interesting perspective, and you came into SJP sort of with that narrative, and then quickly rose through the ranks and became the president. Tell us about that journey.
In my first year was before this time that we passed a resolution. That was the year in 2021 where we also tried to pass the resolution, and it failed, I believe, with one vote. And I believe that was the closest they've gotten since this time. But I was only one of 2 undergrads that were returning. So I was kind of just pushed into like leadership. And also during my time, there wasn't really this hierarchy or this structure. It was just like a group of people that wanted to organize. And so that kind of kept going. In 2021, 2022, I was one of 2 people that came back in person. And I don't know, I just really like to build community and kind of, I don't want to say rebuild the org, because it was really the foundation that helped, but continue to build it. And I think unconsciously at that point, the most important thing to me was building cross-movement solidarity. And that was truly the thing that kept SJP going. Those were the people that stayed, that came back, that helped us with every Zionist attack, and that showed up during this genocide every single week, multiple times a week.
Who were those orgs?
Yeah, those orgs were El Congreso, Mujer, Mauna Kea Protectors, Black Women's Health Collaborative, Student Commission on Racial Equity, Commission on Disability Equity, AJP, Academics for Justice in Palestine on our campus continues to say this is not just SJP, this is not just our movement, this is all of our movements. And they were the ones that built the foundation for us to actually pass a resolution. And their members were the ones that took power in the Senate, that really wanted to make that difference.
Can you talk about the Zionist presence on campus? I know it very well because I was a member of AEPI when I was at UCSB before I was awoken to the plight of Palestinians. And so I know that there's a huge Zionist network, extremely well connected, extremely well funded, backed at a national level. So talk to me about that and what they were trying to do to combat your organizing.
Yeah, we have a very large Zionist population on our campus. I believe one of the biggest UC Zionist populations. And like you said, they're very well connected. They were able to get an entire center doxed of 24 people, predominantly women of color.
That's actually their specialty for doxing.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I keep going back to this Senate change because it's one that I've never seen before. I've gone to Senate many times before, and it's incredibly violent for anyone that's not Zionist to be in. And this was the first time I felt like, oh, I can smile at the Senate. Like there's senators that are not laughing at me or laughing at a genocide. Before, Senate was almost completely made up of Zionists or of normalizers. And this was something that really set the foundation or set the precedent for the school year, because anything that we did, anything that happened on campus, Zionists would go to the Senate and say, hey, like, we need to condemn this. We want to complain about this. This is what's happening. This is our side. There would be, a Senate to entertain that. But this year really took a turn because we came together, and it was a full coalition of not only students, but community members, graduate students, faculty that came together to not only organize within ourselves, but organize our own communities outside, those that don't come to our meetings, those that don't come to our actions.
I can tell you a story from 2012 when I was attending UCSB, and I was already becoming an advocate for Palestine. So I'd already been kicked out of the fraternity, and there was a Senate hearing about entertaining divestment or something along those lines. And I spoke at it. And I remember that there was only one person on the student government who actually cared about what I was saying. So I fully understand what you mean when you're like, they were laughing at me, they were ignoring me, they were ridiculing me. Legitimately, there was only one person, and I still remember her to this day. She was like, you should speak in public more often, is what she said to me. And yeah, so I think it was one of those efforts, one of the initial efforts to divest. And people don't realize this, but the student government controls the purse strings for all of the events and activities on campus, right? So it's not a matter of just like divesting from corporations and companies externally from the community, from the campus, but also anything that happens on campus, the budget has to be approved by the student government, right? And so when they were in charge, when Zionists controlled the purse strings, they were calling all the shots and getting extremely cocky, and they flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, and I think what I've seen from Zionists on our campus throughout this genocide, I truly don't think that they had the passion or the commitment or the intention, and they don't have the numbers. We always have the numbers. One of the things that we always say is that we are the streets, and we always brought out around at least 100 to 800 people to our actions. And I think that really showed Zionists on campus how dedicated we were to actually take power and to actually institutionalize a change that we wanted to see. I remember last year, we didn't have numbers. We didn't really have anything. If I said, hey, do you want to run for Senate? I would laugh at myself and they would laugh at me too, because I'm like, that is a very harmful space to be in when it's only you. Like that person you're saying, I can't imagine being that one out of 24 Zionists or people that just didn't care because it's so violent. But when we saw how many people wanted to run, how many people wanted to divest, we saw the opportunity like this is our chance to actually change campus and change the narrative. And then Zionists changed the narrative to, oh, these people only care about Palestine. They don't care about anything else. They're going to do this one thing and then leave. The one issue party. But we showed up again. This is not just about Palestine. This is about every single place on earth. This is about Chumash land that we're standing on that is stolen, that we have Chumash bones that UCSB refuses to give back. Housing in Ivy is actually disgusting, and that there's no space and that there's mold in every single house. And they showed up and they said, no, this is about Palestine, but this is about everything that we care about. This is about every identity that we care about. And that was just so amazing to see.
I actually was just trying to read a little bit about the history of divestment at UCSB, and like you were saying, like this has come up a number of times. In 2021, like you said, it was one vote that was the difference between passing it and not having the divestment resolution passed. And I think it just goes to show all others students that are engaged in the struggle on their campus that it's going to take multiple times. It certainly,
Right.
I mean, great if it does happen on the first try, but it doesn't mean that because it hasn't, that you're not going to use every single action to build more momentum, to educate more people, and then eventually create that critical mass that leads into one day having the resolution be passed. So I think it's just a great lesson for all SJPs around the country to be persistent and to not give up.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, truly, I remember speaking at a divestment thing in 2012 when I was a student there, right? And so it's the culmination of over 10 years, over a decade of action, of organizing, of trying our hardest to make it stick.
Yeah.
Do you know, so now that the resolution has been passed by students, what does that concretely mean for the investments themselves? Is this some like whole process is shrouded in mystery? And maybe it's different at other schools, but at least in terms of UCSB, can you let us know, does it actually mean that those making the decisions to invest have to take into account the student decision, or do they not even?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the UC regents can just say, I don't care about whatever the students want. So the resolution directs UCSB and UC regents to withdraw their investments in military contracts. The bill changes Associated Students' bylaws to institutionalize a boycott of companies like McDonald's or consumer companies, but also military companies or weapon manufacturer companies. And that controls the $22 million. So in that sense, we are in control of the $22 million, and that will not be going towards companies complicit in occupation and genocide. The other part that, this is not over in any sense, in any means. This was a small, big victory in the sense, but our road to actually divesting the UC is still long and really hard.
For people who don't know about the structure of the UC system, the UC Regents is the governing board of the University of California State System, and it is comprised of business people, people who are sympathetic to weapons manufacturers, people who care more about profit than they do people. And so that's kind of their job, is to oversee the entirety of the UC budget across California and to make sure that that money kind of stays in weapons manufacturing and in death.
Yeah, exactly. And so we are also a part of the UC Divest Coalition, which is a group of organizations across UC campuses that mobilizes on their campus, but also to the UC Regents meeting to make public comment and also really push any action that forces Regents' hand. But what we also know is the Regents themselves don't know anything about the investments. I'm also a part of the Mauna Kea Protectors, which is fighting against a 30-meter telescope in Hawaii. And when we talk to some regents, they're like, we don't know anything about this, but also I support this fully.
That's what happens when you ask a congressperson about Zionism also. They're like, I don't know anything about it. I support it entirely.
Exactly. But there are many that are knowledgeable of exactly what that money is going for, exactly the investments that they're making. And it just goes to show that the UC is a system that is for profit and not for the people, not for the students. And our fight does not stop at UCSB, does not even stop at the associated students, right? We have to go higher to UCSB administration and the UC regents, because our Chancellor Yang is also very much complicit in the investments, right? He's the chair of the 30-meter telescope. He is calling the shots on UCSB campus, and our fight goes to him, goes to UCSB administration, but really it's the UC regents that every UC campus is trying to target, and they have been targeting for years. But it just goes to show that it takes 10 years to make one move on one campus. So it's going to be the generations that come after us and that have come before us that are going to have to really take that labor and continue the fight. That's going to be the hardest part. And alumni.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, you talked about sort of like interjecting Palestine into people's minds, and I'm one of the beneficiaries of that. Like, if I had not walked past the Israeli Apartheid Week demonstration that was going on in campus, that same week that I had been hazed, like, I don't know, like my journey might not have been the same. And so I'm grateful to SJP, UCSB, because it was a part of my awakening, and like there would be no Mikey Intifada without, the people who were working that booth at SJP.
Right. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy to see the change that will come out of this moment, because a lot of people have become organizers and they've become chant leaders and they become senators, and out of Palestine. I would like to think it's because of Palestine, right? That's the gift that Palestine gave them, is the chance to take action and the chance to say like, oh, this is not actually working. I need to be a part of whatever change needs to happen. And I think that's really what we made on this campus, is that it's not just like SJP organizing here and then this person organizing here. We're all organizing under the love for liberation in each other. And so if you want to make change for Palestine or for whatever thing you need, we're going to come together and we're going to be in communication together. So I can support you and you can support me. And I think that was the biggest thing that really pushed for any action that happened for us, or any wins that happened. We were just committed to, I think we were committed to each other. We were committed to our friendships that we made. And without that, we would have gone nowhere. And I think that's what really kept us sane throughout the year, is knowing that, oh, there's these people that will show up no matter if we made a mistake or if someone else is like attacking us, like they will show up no matter what.
Palestine gave people the opportunity to free themselves.
Right.
Jwan, I'm just curious, what's next for you now that you've graduated? Are you going to be working?
What are you, job interviewing her right now?
No, I'm just wondering if she's going to be continuing to organize, or if she's, for a lot of people, they leave that behind in college, unfortunately, and then they step out into the quote unquote real world, and then they, it's not always easy to maintain that level of engagement.
Jwan, are you going to go work for Raytheon?
You caught me. Like, you literally caught me. There's a Lockheed Martin right by my house, so it's just convenient,
Don't tell me that. Don't tempt me with a good time.
I hated UCSB. Like, hate that camp. I love it and hate it, but I have such separation anxiety because I've seen my friends and these organizers almost every single day for the last, what are we, like 9 months now. I'm also a very like go person, and I've been organizing nonstop for 8 months. So right now the only thing on my agenda is eating and waking up, and I hate it so much. So I'm like, I don't know what to do with my time, but I just have to like push myself into organizing outside of UCSB, which is going to be the hard part. But yeah, I always think back to the people's graduation and the community that I kind of left at that place, which is so sad to me because it was just so beautiful. I don't think the words that I say or the sentence that I say really encompass everything that that we've built over the past 8 months just for that campus. So it's going to be so hard to leave it, but also see it grow by itself. It can also just be that I'm a control freak and want to continue to build it. But yeah, so I'm taking a gap year, but I want to continue to organize. I'm also going to Jordan, so I'm trying to find a way to organize there or help in any way I can.
Real quick. Is there a bird in the background? What's going on?
Yeah, I forget we have a bird. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It felt like you were in the Amazon while you
I am. There's a big tree right here.
I'm like, yo, is that bird a Zionist? Because he is disrupting this conversation.
It is. I was also thinking of law school, so studying for the LSAT this year.
I think I speak for all lawyers when I say don't do it, but
I know. I think it's just the logical thing that I'm thinking of, which is a bad way to think of it. I'm not sure. I have a year to, not more than a year, but in my mind, I'm trying to stick to a year.
So you want to be a lawyer for Raytheon?
Yes. No, for the regions, of course.
Oh, yeah. Go directly to the source, huh?
Exactly.
Can you talk about some of the investments that are connected to weapons manufacturers specifically and like where that money would be better spent?
Definitely can. Can you hear the bird?
We can. It's okay. I'll try and lower it in post.
So the UC system has connections to some of the largest weapon manufacturers in the world, namely Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar, General Dynamics. I'm missing a bunch probably. But those
they're
are
all
just
war criminals.
Yep, those are just some of the biggest ones. And they invest billions of dollars into these companies. I believe out of 177 billion, don't quote me on that number, 32 billion is invested into weapon manufacturers. And I can easily take $32 billion and invest them into something better. If they just give me that opportunity, I can definitely do that for them. Any campus housing is a huge thing that needs immediate attention. UCSB is the campus that had plans for Munger Hall, which is like this giant prison-like dorm with no windows that was planned to be built because we have no housing. So that is something that can easily be invested in. The houseless communities within our schools and around our schools, because the UC campuses are land grant institutions and they pollute the rest of the communities that we're placed in. The Chumash land that UCSB is sitting on, food insecurity, grants for research that does not go towards war, scholarships. It's so expensive. Like tuition is crazy. Just workers getting paid enough, especially those that maintain the campus, the janitorial staff, custodians of our campuses. There's just like a million things that can actually be invested in that actually grow life, that actually provide sustainability. The regents are just not wanting to because they profit off of genocide and profit off of war and occupation. And that's something that students have been engaged in for decades. But it's a marathon that we're all engaged in. And it's a fight that will continue to go, not only from our campuses, but for the colony of the US itself, right?
Do you feel that you've left the SJP in good hands? Is there like a cadre of people who are going to pick up the mantle? Like, how do you feel?
Yeah, I hope to see it as them just continuing. I hope it's not like picking up anything or having to rebuild in a sense, but just continuing the work. The thing that I really focus on and really try to push is cross movement solidarity and work. But that's just one thing that I personally really saw held the movement and sustained the movement and grew the movement. And so SJPs anywhere like at UCSB and beyond will continue to reevaluate the climate and see what is going to help their movement continue to grow, their movement to move forward. Student movement really gained traction for the past 8 months. So that's going to be something that everyone's going to have to navigate, not being on campus and not organizing in that scene and coming back in the fall and, seeing where we're at. Is the genocide continuing at that point? And how could we continue to move forward and continue the power that we had and we will continue to have?
So I don't know if I told you this. Actually, I think I did when I spoke to Professor Butch Ware's thing. One of the reasons that I was drawn to UC Santa Barbara is that I heard in the 1970s they burned down the Bank of America in Isla Vista in protest of the Vietnam War. And I was like, that's my fucking jam. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you see yourself and your fellow students in the context of the greater movement of college protests in history?
Yeah, the student movement at this point has learned from the movements that came before us and the movements that are ongoing. I think a lot of people like to see this moment as isolated to their campus or to the US, but we have to understand that this is something that, one, was ongoing before us, and two, is ongoing in the context outside of the US, outside of North America. And I see it working within the larger movement and just learning from everything that anyone else does, learning from their mistakes, learning from our own mistakes. I think we always see the students mobilizing and having power, but also seeing that in a lot of cases it's contained to the campus, but realizing that we also do work outside of our campuses and within our surrounding areas and in the global context. We always see the students rising up, the students really pushing that change. And we've seen that with what is now called the student intifada. I like to see it as students being in communication with each other. Within the UC context, we're always in communication across campuses, seeing what is happening. How does your campus affect my campus? How does my actions affect you? How can I work to help you with whatever you're doing? And I like to think of Palestine and the students of Palestine and the students of Gaza really being the push for anything that we do. I think it's really hard to center Palestine at all times within actions that are being pushed on campuses, which it can get muddy and it can sometimes center our campuses and forget that at the end of the day, everything that we're doing is for Gaza. I think this is where the student movement has to get creative and have to center Palestine in a creative way, which we are fighting to divest on our campuses, but the reason that we want to divest is for Palestine. So thinking of that in a creative way has been hard for the student movements in the US because we don't want to drown out the sounds of Gaza. We don't want to drown out the images from Gaza or the calls from Gaza. But at the same time, we have to mobilize the people on our campus. We have to put out that call while also understanding that we are in the 8th month of a genocide, that we have 1,000 mutual aids that need to be donated to, that yes, we have jail support funds that we need that protect our students and protect those that are most vulnerable. But we also have to understand that we should also be engaging with Palestine first and foremost on the daily basis.
I just want to say that we are super proud of you and the work that you've done and the work that SJP and all of the coalition orgs have done. I don't know if you remember, but you had us come. Well, I'm sure you remember. You had us come speak. But like
it wasn't like 20 years ago.
No. But it was a few years ago. It was like maybe 2 years ago that you had us give a lecture. Both me and Lara zoomed in, and after the lecture, you were talking to me, and you were like, "Hey, we're being heavily attacked by Zionists, like across all avenues. Like, what should we do? Like, what's the best way forward?" And I was like, the only way that you are going to defeat Zionism is if you build cross coalitions, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And so you did it.
We did.
And
we did.
We are so proud of you for doing that.
Thank you. I don't think I told you, but your workshop in that conference was the highlight of everyone's experience. And they were talking to me about it days after it happened. And just, they absolutely loved that workshop. It was a highlight of the conference, honestly. Yeah.
We were honored to be a part of it. And in Yiddish, there's a term called kvelling. And it's just like, I'm overwhelmingly proud of the work that you've done.
I take inspiration from you guys and everyone that has taught me everything I know and continue to learn.
Keep up the great work, and
Thank
don't
you.
become a lawyer for Raytheon.
I'll try.
Folks, that's been another episode of the pod. Thank you all so much for listening. Check out our full episodes and sources at www.palestinepod.com. Follow us on Instagram at @thepalestinepod. Send us an email at palestinepod@gmail.com, and look for us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/palestinepod. That's been another episode of the pod. Thank you all so much for listening. Have as good a day as you can.
We can start telling people to join the Patreon. The show wouldn't be possible without a Patreon. You got to get on our Patreon. Support us on Patreon. You can, because like I've been watching all these other podcasts and they just keep plugging Patreon like all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to clip what you just did right now.
Okay.